Whenever I work in a multi-cloud environment, I feel like I lose visibility and control over the assets that I'm responsible for. And it turns into a monthly exercise in manual reconciliation just to ensure that we're reporting our costs correctly. This is a quote from a platform engineer that I was speaking with recently. If this resonates with you in the same way that it does with me, then you're in luck, because we're going to fix that today using CloudQuery, Postgres, and Grafana. In this tutorial, we're going to build a multi-cloud dashboard that consolidates all the key information from AWS and GCP into a single dashboard. However, don't despair if this isn't your stack. We have plugins and documentation for all major platforms, and the process is going to be essentially the same, so you can follow along and simply substitute the platforms as needed. Now for the prerequisites. To make this tutorial a little easier to follow, we'll be running everything locally, and we'll assume that you have CloudQuery installed and that you have the AWS and GCP CLI tools installed and configured correctly. You can find the links to the relevant docs and videos to help you do this in the video description. Okay, so to get started, the first thing that we're going to want to do is grab the boilerplate for the config, and the easiest way to do that is to head over to the integrations page, and then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to the AWS one, and then Postgres, and we're going to copy the aws.yaml boilerplate, and we'll create that file in our text editor. So, aws yaml. And we're going to paste that in here. Now, the next thing we're going to notice is that this table section is a little short. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Policies, AWS, and then I'm just going to grab the requirements for the foundational security best practices. So this gives us a really good coverage of the AWS API, and the easiest way to get through this is just to paste that in there, and it's a really good place to start. There aren't any other changes that I need to make to my AWS config, but you might need to lock this down to specific regions or accounts or organizations if you have access to multiple ones. So I'm going to move on and go across to integrations again, and then to Google Cloud. And now I'm going to pick Postgres again, and this time I'm going to copy the config for Google Cloud. Now the Google Cloud one requires a couple of additional changes. So we're going to do GCP YAML, and I'm going to paste that in here. Now, again, the table section is a bit short and the project ID is wrong. So I'm going to set the project ID, for me is CQ Playground, but make sure that you set it to the correct value for yours. And then with the tables, we have a similar situation here, so we only have one table present. For GCP, it's a little different. I'm going to pick up the CIS requirements, but I don't have all of these APIs enabled, so what am I going to do? Well, the key APIs that I do need are enabled, so I'm just going to use this and filter it down. So in this case, I don't have some of these policies enabled, so I'm just going to go and remove the ones that I know I don't have, or that aren't relevant to me. So that would be these ones, and this one. So all of these APIs are enabled. So now we're going to go back. We're going to go to integrations again, AWS and Postgres, and this time we're going to pick up the boilerplate for Postgres. So I'm going to create a new file, and we'll call it Postgres.yaml, and then we're going to paste that in here. And I have Postgres running inside a Docker container, so I'm just going to grab the connection string for that and paste it in here. And that's all I should need for the Postgres here. So I'm going to save that. And then we'll do CloudQuery sync. So CloudQuery sync aws.yaml gcp.yaml and postgres.yaml. Now, this is going to take a short while to run, so feel free to go and grab a fresh cup of tea or do whatever it is you need to do. In my case, I'm going to get on with some other work while we wait. Okay, great, so that is fully synced. We did get a couple of errors on the AWS one, but that probably won't matter for us in this case, so we're not going to look into that. Okay, so now that we've got our data synchronized, the next thing that we want to do is load up the views that we're going to need for our dashboards. So we have some handy prepared views for you in the CloudQuery monorepo. So to find these, we go to Plugins, Source, and then we need to go to the relevant ones for our platforms. So first thing is AWS for us, and then it's in Views, and you'll find resources.sql. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to use data grep. I'm just going to create a new file, and we'll call it aws.sql. And I'm going to paste this into here. And we are going to apply this to our Postgres database that we have created. So all we want to do is select everything and run it. So that has run it for our AWS. So the next thing we want to do is run it for our GCP. So again, this time we go down to source, and we're going to GCP, views, and we want to grab the one for resource.sql from here. So again, I'll copy the raw file. So again, I'm going to pop this into a new file. So I'll say new SQL file, and we'll call it GCP. And I'll paste this in here, select everything, and run that. And this is also completed nicely. So now that we have both of our views set up, we can hop into Grafana and start importing our dashboards. So I have Grafana loaded, and the first thing that I'm going to want to do is go across to our plugins again. Since we have the GCP folder open, we're going to pop up to GCP, and then into dashboards, and then Grafana. And in this case, I want the asset inventory.json. So I'm going to download this file, and I'll just save it into my downloads. Then I'm going to go to Grafana, dashboards, and I want to import a dashboard, and we're going to upload the file from my downloads. So, GCP asset inventory, this is fine. We could put it in its own folder, but we don't need to. And we're going to select our default Postgres data source. And here we have our information from GCP. So, the next thing that we want to do is we want to load up our AWS dashboard. So again, pop back up to dashboards here, go to our CloudQuery GitHub, and we're going to go source, and then into AWS, then dashboards, Grafana, and again, we want the AWS asset inventory JSON. So I'm going to download that, and I'm just going to save it into my downloads folder. You see, I've already done this before, but we're doing a new one this time, so we'll download it. And again, we're going to upload. This time on AWS asset inventory, And again, we're going to select our Postgres data source. So here we have our AWS asset inventory. So these are the two pre-built dashboards. Now, what we want to do from here is we want to build our own dashboard to provide us with that overview. So we have our two dashboards. So I'm going to open these into new tabs. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to grab a new tab, just a duplicate of the AWS one, and we're going to save our AWS one as multicloud now. So now we've got this saved as multicloud, we want to make a couple of changes. So we're going to change these variable names. So this will become AWS account IDs. AWS regions. And AWS CQ tables. So we'll save that. And then we're going to get rid of a few dashboards that won't necessarily be relevant for what we're looking for. So we're going to get rid of that and this. And we're going to move this to here. And we'll just remove the resources by region as well. Then I'm going to adjust these so that they are equal. Like that. And we're just going to double check that everything still works. Ooh, no. We want to save. And we're just going to double check. Now, you'll notice that these are all broken. And the reason that they're broken is because we changed the variable names. So we're just going to go into edit. And where we say CQ tables here, we're going to adjust that to say AWS CQ tables. Where we say regions, it will be AWS regions. And where we say account IDs, it will be AWS account IDs. And if we apply that, save, and refresh, we'll see that that number's back. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing here and make the same adjustments. So AWS regions, AWS CQ tables. AWS account IDs, AWS regions, so we've got the AWS column done. Now the only thing we want to change now is we just want to give this a slightly different name. So this is AWS total resources. And the same here. And the same here. Now what we want to do is copy the same three columns from the GCP asset inventory. So what we're going to do is we're going to go copy, pop over to this one, and we'll paste panel, and we'll start making the GCP column. So again, copy, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to scale these to match, rename them, so that we keep track. Okay, and now we need to bring in the additional variables. So we can go over to here, we can go dashboard, variables, open the variable up, we're going to copy the query, go to our multi-cloud one, pull up the variables, and we're going to duplicate the relevant variable, and then we're going to edit this. So we'll name this GCP account IDs. We'll paste it in here. Oh, sorry, this is project. We're going to go over here now. We're going to edit this, and where it says project IDs, we'll say GCP. Where it says regions, we'll say GCP. And where it says CQ tables, we'll say GCP. Run the query, save, and apply. Now, you'll notice that the total resources is very slightly different here. So here we have project IDs is all, regions is all, CQ tables is all. And yet here we don't have that. So what's going on? So we must have made a small mistake in copying our variables. Yeah, so this still says AWS resources here. So we pasted this into the wrong field. So you need to be careful with that. Save the dashboard and refresh. And there we go. So now we're going to continue editing. So now we have a really great overview of what's going on in both clouds. And if we need more detail, we can go to each individual dashboard, and we could even create more dashboards with a higher level of detail as needed. That's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to put something in the comment or join the Discord. The link to the Discord is in the description.